Christopher Watts, also known as the Family Annihilator, was by all who knew him a doting father and loving husband before the events that unfolded on August 13th, 2018 in Frederick, Colorado, where the lives of Shanann Watts, her two daughters Bella and Celeste, often referred to as CeCe, and her unborn son to be called Nico, were tragically cut short. I understand many of you watching this video may be all too familiar with the details surrounding the Watts family murders, but I'd like to provide a brief summary of the case before we get into the three wildly weird and possibly unknown things which will leave you reanalyzing this whole case in a new way. So stay tuned, and while we're reviewing the Watts tragedy and uncovering some interesting angles, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and initiate the notification bell. In August 2018, Shanann Watts, 15 weeks pregnant, and her daughters were reported missing by a friend after she failed to respond to messages and attend a doctor's appointment. Nicole Atkinson became increasingly concerned over her friend and colleague's unusual absence of responsive communication. After phone calls to Shanann's husband Chris left Nicole even more ill at ease, she took it upon herself to drive to the Watts home with her teenage son and attempt to make contact. Nicole's instincts were telling her something was not right. Chris was offering up some very strange and new information regarding the state of his and Shanann's marriage. Separation? Divorce? Shanann had never spoke of divorce. They were welcoming their third child soon. Selling the house? No. Shanann would have said something. She leaned hard on the support of her friends and was extremely open when it came to her personal life. Even if she was jumping the gun, Nicole figured it's better to be safe than sorry. She hoped she would ring the bell of the Watts home and be greeted by a groggy Shanann, probably embarrassed to have sent her friend into such a tizzy. At the most, she thought, Shanann might have fainted or fallen. After all, Shanann was well into a difficult and high-risk pregnancy and had some ongoing health issues, albeit not life-threatening. But upon her arrival and attempt to make personal contact at the Watts home, Atkinson was not relieved at all. Her repeated door knocking and ringing of the doorbell went unanswered. She peered through the glass front door of what looked to be an oddly quiet and empty home for a mom with two little ones. The family's only vehicle containing the toddler's two car seats was parked in the garage. Chris, who drove a company truck, was still at work, seemingly unconcerned with the situation that left Nicole with a brick in her stomach, a lump in her throat. From the front porch of 2825 Saratoga Trail, Nicole phoned local authorities, requesting a wellness check on a 34-year-old pregnant female and her two daughters ages 3 and 5. Local officers soon accompanied Nicole at the Watts' two-story brown suburban home, and police body cam videos start to tell the tale of the horrific Watts family legacy. After failed attempts by the officers to enter the home or make contact with Shanann, an Anadarko petroleum truck pulls up to the house and parks at the curb. A skittish Chris Watts jumps out and hustles towards the small group gathered on the lawn. He allows the concerned parties entry into the house. A sweep of the home reveals a few key early findings, including Shanann's cell phone recovered from under sofa cushions, Shanann's wedding ring from the bedside table, CeCe and Bella's medications for asthma on the kitchen counter, Shanann's purse found on the floor of the home office, and Shanann's daily wear flip-flops sitting just inside the front door. Additionally, although not immediately deemed over-alarming, the girls' beds were not made, and Chris and Shanann's bed had been completely stripped of its sheets and comforter. While the condition of the family's bedding was perplexing, especially to Nicole, who described her friend Shanann as a bit OCD, The state of the bedrooms would later serve as hard evidence, aiding crime investigators in piecing the puzzle together. Days after their disappearance, Christopher Watts was arrested and subsequently admitted to the murders. He confessed to strangling Shanann in a fit of rage at their home after an emotional confrontation regarding their marriage. Watts also admitted to killing his daughters, stating that he smothered them with blankets before disposing of their bodies at an oil site where he worked. The discovery of their bodies and the arrest of Christopher Watts sent shockwaves across the country. It raised questions about the nature of the crime, the motives behind such horrific actions, and the breakdown of a seemingly normal family. As the case unfolded, details emerged about financial strain, marital issues, and infidelity within the Watts family. However, the senseless and brutal nature of the murders left many searching for answers and grappling with the heartbreaking loss of Shanann, Bella, CeCe, and the unborn Nico. Christopher Watts pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including first-degree murder, unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and tampering with deceased bodies. In November 2018, he was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole. The tragic deaths of Shanann, Bella, CeCe, and Nico Watts serve as a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of domestic conflict and the irreplaceable loss experienced by their loved ones and the wider community. The case also spurred conversations about domestic violence, mental health, and the importance of early intervention and support in troubled family dynamics. Now, I want to reiterate here that my synopsis, which you just heard, is comprised of very high-level bullet points. There's much, much more to this case. And if you have an interest you have not fed yet with the abundance of public information surrounding the Watts family murders, I encourage you to do your own research. This case is, for lack of a better term, a doozy. And again, for lack of a better phrase, it's the case that haunts me, and I know many of you feel the same. I want to thank you for joining me in this deep dive into 3 wildly weird and possibly unknown things about the Watts family murders that I believe will get your wheels turning all over again. Let's get into it. Number 1 on the wildly weird and possibly unknown things about the Watts family murders: the staged crime scene. As mentioned in this video's introduction, Nicole Atkinson's wellness check request prompted police presence at the Watts home, followed by Chris Watts himself leading authorities through the home in a sort of Easter egg hunt, where Shanann's keys, phone, wedding ring, and other personal belongings, or belongings that would normally be on her person, were discovered. If I can be so presumptuous, I think many of you already have suspicions regarding the placement of the items Chris and those searching the home that day conveniently find, one after the other. It's like, oh snap, here's her phone. Holy moly, and her wedding ring over there. Where's her purse? Oh my gosh, it's right here. Of course, the items found by anyone other than Chris Watts were huge surprises and warranted such reactions, especially Shanann's cell phone, which was turned off and pulled from in between the sofa cushions by Nicole's teenage son, who drove to the scene with her. Referencing the police body cam footage of that day, it was revealed prior to Chris's arrival that Nicole had the Watts' front door keypad code. However, she was unable to open the front door even after disarming the coded deadbolt because the door had been locked from the inside with a safety latch, and what's been described to the public as kind of one of those hotel room locks that you use as an extra layer of security when one is inside and does not want external entry to be made. But let's back up a bit and more attentively run through the scene at the Watts home. Chris arrives home, greets an officer, and opens the garage with his remote fob in order to enter his home through the garage door, which leads to a mudroom and then the rest of the house. Nicole, her son, and the police officer enter the home through the front door after Chris opens the latch from the inside. What I want to focus on is the time frame from when Chris opens the garage door to when he allows the others entry through the front door. And referencing the body cam footage, we see Chris remotely open the garage door, step into the garage, open the passenger door of the family's white Lexus crossover, lean into the car, then bend down, seemingly retrieving something, or placing something, or possibly just checking something beneath the passenger seat of the vehicle. Now, I've analyzed, zoomed in, replayed, and slowed down this section of the video many times, trying to ascertain the items Chris is holding and what he might have placed or pulled from the car. Unfortunately, the video does not give away anything definitive except for Chris's obvious movements. From inside the garage, we see Chris open the door to the house and go into the home while Nicole looks into the windows of the Lexus. Chris closes the door behind him, which I find really odd. It's almost as if he's denying the others entry. Why is it necessary that they enter through the front door? We see the parties left outside for a full minute and 20 seconds before Chris unlocks the front door for them to come inside. Let me say that again. What should have taken him mere seconds to walk from one interior door to another on the same floor of the home ultimately took him 80 seconds. Let me present that another way. Wouldn't you have at least a little giddy up in your stride to let law enforcement inside of your house to find your missing family? Referencing the body cam footage again, once Chris unlocks the latched front door, it takes Nicole Atkinson about 8 seconds to enter the home, move through the foyer, pass by the stairs, and walk beyond the passageway Chris would have taken from the garage to the room where the front door is. And Nicole is not power stepping it through the scene. She is clearly covering ground purposefully yet cautiously, looking from floor to ceiling with each step, trying to understand what the heck has happened in this house and where on earth her friend and her family could be. With the comparison of Chris's 80-second trek from the garage to the front door, to Nicole's 8-second journey of a distance seemingly about half the size of Chris's, I think it's fair to say that it should have taken Chris no longer than 20 seconds to open the front door after entering through the garage. That is, unless he took a significant detour, and I believe 100% that's exactly what he did. I believe, and please note this is my opinion, that Chris entered the home and quickly, although sloppily, staged the scene. Whether or not Chris retrieved Shanann's phone from her vehicle, which she would have planted there that morning, I believe Chris needed that minute and 20 seconds to hide the phone, possibly even get it off his person, and maybe even stage the wedding ring. I also think it is highly likely that Chris had both the wedding ring and the phone in the white Lexus car, which he would have dumped or even destroyed that evening had Nicole not gone into swift action and interrupted his plan. I believe when he arrived to the welfare check of his own home, he retrieved the phone and possibly the ring from beneath the passenger seat of the garaged Lexus. Under this theory, you can almost not see the footage any other way. I encourage you to analyze it yourself, accounting for these new possibilities. We pretty well know that taking responsibility for his crimes was not part of Chris Watts' plan. He was set to adamantly back up his BS about Shanann taking the kids for a play date and never returning, and if his family was kidnapped in the process, well, that was logical enough for him to defend too. We also know Chris is not the brightest bulb in the tanning bed, and I truly believe his crimes would have been exposed even if it had taken a bit longer and through an alternative investigation. However, it does send a chill down my spine to think, had Shanann's diligent friend Nicole not blown this thing out of the water, Chris might have further staged the leaving and or kidnapping of his family, delaying his arrest, possibly even setting into motion what we would now know as a case gone cold. That is one terrifying thought. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Number 2 on the list of wildly weird and possibly unknown things about the Watts family murders is the strangulation of Shanann Watts. Chris Watts has provided a few confession versions, although it seems an accepted detail that closely preceding the end of Shanann's life, the couple had sex, and within hours of her passing. In one of Chris's confessions, he strangled Shanann after discovering she had strangled their 2 daughters to death. In this version, Chris sets the stage for a justified snap, almost an understandable retaliation. However, he later revises the story and admits to strangling Shanann in their bed after he tells her he is no longer in love with her and she threatens to take the kids away and never permit him to see them again. For the sake of this video, let's go with the latter account, the universally accepted one in which Chris, unprovoked by Shanann hurting the children in any way, kills Shanann by strangulation. In this narrative of Shanann's death, she did not put up a fight. Chris sustained no signs of defensive wounds to his person, such as scratch marks or bruising. Things you would expect to see on the killer of a feisty mama bear like Shanann Watts. Chris maintains Shanann just let it happen. He even suggests she could have just been praying as she laid there motionless and he compressed her airway. I have a major problem with this, and these details have kept me up at night. I don't think I have to argue how rattling it is to have your breath restricted, and I'm unaware of any other manual strangulation cases where the conscious, alert victim just let it happen. I have a theory which I've not heard provided to the discrepancies of Chris's off-the-wall testimonial of the murder of his wife, and bear with me because I think you'll find this interesting. If we are to take as fact that Chris and Shanann were intimate sexually prior to her strangulation, and that Shanann either was unable to or simply did not defend herself and leave evidence of the assault with wounds to Chris's face, arms, chest, etc., isn't it plausible that Chris strangled her during sex? And taking this theory a step further, which I believe to be highly probable, wouldn't it be likely that instead of strangling her while he was straddling her, as he describes in his confession, he strangled her while he was behind her? Listen, I am in no way trying to be crass or disrespectful to the dead or to you guys as listeners. We're just talking typical birds and bees, normal marital relations here, okay? If Chris was actually behind Shanann in a popular position I won't name, wouldn't this account for Shanann being defenseless? Because knowing what we know now about everything that was stewing within Christopher Watts, the affair, the problems with the in-laws, the baby he didn't want, and the resentment towards Shanann, I can see Chris snapping in a moment such as the one I'm trying to describe. He didn't want to have sex with his wife, and he's admitted as much. Shanann desperately wanted to connect with her husband, so frankly, I think she would have been down for however he was willing to consummate the evening. I'm just not buying, much less can I even picture, his story that he gets on top of a pregnant Shanann in a straddling position to have the emotional conversation about the collapse of their marriage, the dividing of assets, and custody of their children. Just work with me here for a moment, and particularly the women, but guys, you'll get this too. Your husband of 8 years straddles your pregnant belly in bed not long after you've had relations, and he tells you the love is gone for him. He wants a divorce. This is the first time you're hearing words even remotely of this nature from him. is anyone going to contest that a woman who is not in a catatonic or vegetable state doesn't react quite aggressively, first and most likely by telling him to get the hell off of her? I mean, you just don't process that information for the first time, horizontal and pillow top. I argue that if this conversation actually took place, Shanann did not maintain this nap time position. And by the way, I'm not sold at all that this discussion happened. Chris was too passive and wussy to initiate such a conversation. I find it makes too much sense from the evidence and what we can decipher of Chris's confessions that Chris Watts surprise strangled Shanann Watts from behind. She never had a chance to defend herself. Now let this swim around your coconut for a bit and get back with me. Leave a comment. If you're willing to go there, let's dissect this a little more. I'd really like to hear from you guys. The third wildly weird and possibly unknown thing about the Watts family murders, the disassociative language from Nicole Kessinger. Sad but true, it's difficult to discuss the Watts case without the sixth main character and Chris's mistress, Nicole Kessinger. If you ask me, there are more wildly weird things about Nicole Kessinger than there are not, so I thoughtfully had to narrow it down to how she attempted to distance herself from Shanann and the Watts children through her police interviews. Watch any of Nicole Kessinger's investigator-led interviews for the first time, and you may assume Nicole was just a lust-struck fool in the dark. If you're able to excuse some of her odd and annoying vocal inflections, you might have even sympathized with the youthful, free-spirited brunette who caught Chris Watts' attention at their shared place of work, Anadarko Petroleum. According to NK, Chris informed her that he had 2 daughters by his estranged wife, with whom he was actively going through a divorce with. Even still, their attraction trumped his familial commitments, and the duo consensually entered into a relationship. Nicole K. has maintained that she was always led to believe that Chris and Shanann were over, despite the understandable complicated living situation that Chris fed NK, in which he claimed the married couple co-parented and worked towards finalizing the divorce amicably, but due to shared financials, Chris was temporarily still residing in the family home, in a makeshift bedroom in their unfinished basement. Listen closer to those interviews with Nicole Kessinger, and you'll without a doubt notice a pattern of language and vocabulary which disassociates herself from the victims in the Watts family. It's been joked that one would be on the floor if they participated in a drinking game where you would have to take a shot every time NK replaced the names Shanann, Bella, or CeCe with ordinary pronouns like she, her, those, and them. I mean, it happens a lot, and to me it becomes quite rude and disparaging even for her to purposefully avoid the birth names of the Watts victims, almost like they had wronged her. It really leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I find myself on a fist-clenching ledge anytime I review the footage. Fascinatingly corroborating her deliberate disassociations is the fact that computer forensics revealed that NK had performed internet searches about Amber Frey, the mistress of infamously guilty Scott Peterson. Okay, in my opinion, Scott Peterson is guilty. Jeez, he's locked up, guys. He was captured looking like that kid from The Sandlot after he dyed his hair and beard orange and gone on the run. Anyway, it is reported that Kessinger Googled terms and phrases like, "Did people hate Amber Frey?" and "Amber Frey book deal" within days of Christopher Watts' arrest. In my opinion, Nicole Kessinger was embracing an inflated view of herself by comparing her informed invasion of a marriage and a growing family to Amber Frey's situation. Amber Frey has been proven a victim herself of Scott Peterson's elaborate deceptions. Scott went to great lengths to lie in detail to Amber and hide his family life. Amber had no idea who she was sleeping with, and when she learned of Laci Peterson's disappearance and the connection it had to the man she'd been seeing, and only knew to be a single, sweet unicorn of a guy, She immediately contacted police and cooperated fully, even at her own risk, with law enforcement. Amber was instrumental in cracking the Laci Peterson case. Amber can rest easy today, and she deserves any success she's received. Nicole Kessinger, on the other hand, well, her Google searches revealed that she knew she was in the wrong and that she feared the wrath of the public. While I can't say I believe, like some, that Kessinger played a direct and active role in the killings of the Watts family, her disassociation in speech, coupled with incriminating behaviors like the deleting of text messages between her and Chris Watts, did nothing to aid the investigation. And while on the subject of Nicole Kessinger, how about a bonus wildly weird and possibly unknown thing about the Watts family murders? I myself have watched tons of YouTube videos on the Watts case, and the comment sections say a lot on the public's perception of the people involved in this case. Seems to me that many are not happy that Nicole Kessinger is a free citizen. I've seen this one detail come up several times within people's comments, and as I know this detail to be mishandled information, I thought I could shed some light on it. Your bonus wildly weird and possibly unknown thing about the Watts family murder is the Calculator app. In order to hide his affair with Nicole Kessinger from his wife, Shanann Watts, Chris Watts downloaded a secret calculator app. The main purpose of the secret calculator app is to hide photos on your phone under an innocuous-looking application. When the app is installed on one's phone, the thumbnail looks and the program seems to perform like a normal calculator. However, when your chosen PIN code is entered into the calculator, your hidden files can be accessed. This app has been around for decades, but only since the Watts case have I seen such public buzz and misinformation about it. One misconception I know from the YouTube comment section is many people think Chris and Nicole Kessinger both used this app to communicate with each other on the down low, but this is not true. Only Chris's phone had been said to have the app installed on it, and the secret calculator app is not an anonymous communication vessel, but an anonymous media storage vessel. So what was recovered from Chris's calculator were risque photos of Nicole Kessinger, either which she had texted to him and he transferred to the app, or he had captured himself before transferring to the app. I think it's important to clear some of these details up because, as I mentioned earlier, I am not of the mindset that NK had a direct and deliberate hand in the Watts killings or knowledge of any premeditation on behalf of Chris. Look, I'm not heading up a Kessinger is innocent movement or anything like that, okay, guys? I think she made some dumb mistakes by getting involved with this guy and deleting their text messages. I'm just pointing out that some of the information surrounding this case has gone through sort of a telephone game and has clearly been altered as it's been handed down the line. So for those who care about accuracy, maybe you appreciate my plight here. I sure hope you enjoyed this video and got a little fix for your true crime obsession. As I said, this case in particular is one that gets to me. I think it always will. If you'd like to continue the conversation, leave me a comment below. I'll engage. As always, I like to recognize that while public fascination with cases like these can seem counterproductive, it can't be denied that it keeps the victims on the minds and in the hearts of those like you who are watching. Before you go, show your support by subscribing to this channel, like this video, share it, hit the notification bell. As of now, this content isn't monetized. This is just a hobby. I do it for you guys. So let me know you're enjoying it. Let me know if you want more of it, if you want me to continue. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.